attorneys?
Yeah, that's our
Are we
agenda.
voting on that?
You would be voting on that tonight, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, was it from you? Did it come from you or from,
Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the first part.
did
I
it
haven't
come
been
from
reading
you?
I was
about
looking forward to
anything,
a
so I have no idea.
non-controversial night.
The email came from Kirsten.
Huh?
I was looking forward to a non-controversial night.
Oh, once we got them involved,
But if we're gonna be voting on the city attorney's verbiage,
Like the
then
HBC ordinance and all that, so.
this is gonna be a little controversial.
yeah, we need to be voting on charging somebody $250 on water.
Yeah. Now, Ron, the motion that we're looking for, is it the same motion that David put on the bottom of the council
You could
packet
very
version?
well, you could very well use that same motion, you don't have to. You want to
Yes,
propose
it's right
different type of
before.
motion,
But it's on the corner
either,
for the Liberty Bell.
I guess in the negative, non-affirmative. Or you can just change it all together.
I'll come
You
up
want
with
to say something stupid.
Can we make a motion to amend?
You can make, or you can, you say whatever motion you want,
Okay.
yeah.
So we can make a point of order motion to request additional information or for understanding.
You can.
And we can make a motion to amend the city attorney's
You can.
comments,
Mhm.
proposed verbiage.
You can.
I have a copy of it.
Okay.
I didn't know it was on tonight's agenda,
Okay.
so,
I have no idea. I haven't read up on anything. I've been
let's
so
hope it
busy with the
comes tonight
weeks.
and not ruffle any feathers.
Well, I'm sure we'll pull it up for them when we get to
Okay.
that point, yeah.
Or did y'all send it to me by email?
Yes, it should be.
Yeah.
the email.
Okay,
I
sorry.
read through, it's pretty straightforward.
Okay,
I'm sure we'll cover some discussion.
dang.
So we've got this, everything we had yesterday, David? Everything we had yesterday, right?
Yes. Digital.
Yeah, I don't think oh, y'all sent it to my other one. Damn, I forgot.
It's
Sorry,
the,
I sent it over a week ago, Sarah, and I haven't even.
It's okay, y'all sent it to the beauty and history one, and I keep forgetting to download that one on my phone.
this was Tuesday,
Yeah, because the last one I had is
Write
for
down
my,
your one that
It
needs to
should've
be
been
in the
last
group
Okay.
email that, you need to send stuff to. Because
Okay.
when I pulled off of Civic Clerk, and that's what Elisa has on there, so I might need to get her to change hers too for anything, considering.
yeah, this was a week ago.
yeah, my bad.
It was last
No,
Tuesday.
you're fine.
Are we on?
Thanks, keep reading,
Kirsten?
thank you.
Last Tuesday.
You're-
Look, I was in, I don't even think
Kirsten?
I was home yet.
Kirsten,
I saw
are we
it.
on?
Look, I had sand in my phone when I was looking.
I
at it.
just didn't even check that other email. I don't know why I don't check that other email.
Good evening. It is June 29th, 2021, and top of the hour, and the Historical Preservation Commission is now in session. Please stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have a motion to accept the agenda?
Yes.
Move to adopt agenda.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion to adopt the instruction. All in favor? Motion carried. Okay. Approval of the minutes. Commissioners, have you had a chance to read the minutes of the last meeting, which would have been from April?
There's minutes from May 18th and the special call meeting from June 9th. that was sent.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I was not present on the June 9th, so I can speak to the May minutes, however.
Yeah.
We need two motions.
Yes.
Okay, I can make a motion to accept the minutes for May.
We have a motion to accept the minutes of May. Is there any second?
Second.
Okay, motion is made in second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Do we have a motion for the minutes of the April meeting? June meeting, I'm sorry, our June special meeting.
Motion for June,
Okay,
to accept minutes.
okay, motion to accept is it? Second?
Yes, I second the motion to accept June 9th special meeting minutes.
Okay, we have a motion to accept the minutes as they stand with no corrections for the June 9th meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Kirsten, I'm going to
Opposed?
abstain.
Motion
from that
carried.
Motion.
4 ayes and 1 abstention. Okay, public comment. We have anyone who is going to be speaking tonight for public comment? Mr. Kemp? Okay.
Can I give these out to the members? There's 7 of them there. I think there's enough for you and them.
Thanks.
Okay. Commission members, I want to take a few moments to explain why I'm here today and give you a short personal history. I grew up in Villa Rica and lived at 207 Rockmart Road. At that time, it was 310 Jones Street. I started my life at 617 Magnolia Street, which is directly across from the Conley Marchman House. I knew the Conleys. Old man Conley, as I knew him, as a child, when he passed away. I went to his house and saw him lay him in state in the front room of his house. He was the first person I'd ever seen that had passed away. I knew his daughter-in-law, who was mayor of Villa Rica for several years, so I have a personal history with the family and the house for the large part of my life. In getting ready to be here today, I went through all the minutes of the commission meetings dealing with the Conley Marchman House and found some interesting things. On the January 13th, 2015, your minutes read in part, one of the duties of the DDA is to help refurbish buildings. Commissioner Proctor said the Conley Marchman House is a priority with the Historic Preservation Commission, and this is our project for 2015. And the reason I gave out those flyers is to give you context of anything else before or after, and what I'm going by is, or reading out of the minutes, is highlighted in those. October the 13th, Commissioner Proctor expressed concern with the churches owning the property after the renovations are complete. February the 9th, 2016, there was some discussion of future plans for the house if the renovations were completed. This is the last notation that the Conley Marchman House, about the Conley Marchman House until the recent emergency meeting to approve the COA for the church. I am going to be clear here. The commission has failed in every way since its beginning. Your reason for being is to assist historic properties to get resources needed to repair and maintain those properties. Instead, all this commission does is talk, and more talk. And in the process, allow a historic property to deteriorate to the state it is in now. If I were a betting man, I would bet that it is financially and possibly physically impossible to repair under the COA demand. In every organization like, there comes a time that they must put up or shut up, and that time is now for this organization. profess to have the historic interest of Billerica at heart, and even advocate that the grants and donations are available because of this commission. To date, I have not seen any such influence. All I have seen is empty promises. I have one other issue I wish to point out. The house known as the Hart House. I point out in the minutes of your meeting of April the 12th, 2016, the following. Commissioner, and I'm going to say Poor, P-O-E-R is the way it's spelled in the minutes, said there is a public group working towards raising funds to preserve the Hart House, and asked Thomas, and that's Gary Thomas, if the church would be willing to accept donations. Thomas said that the church is willing to turn the house over to the Historic Preservation Commission and will allow the house to be stored on church property. But the church does not have the desire to preserve the house, but will participate with the commission if the house, to see if the house can be preserved. What the church has done today has been expensive. To date, no donations have been received by the church for this purpose. And I ask now, has this commission received any donations to help secure anything to do with the Hart House? I take no pleasure at pointing out the fallacies of this commission, but because you want me as a property owner to accept that you have the ability, knowledge, and best interest at heart to assist us if needed, this just is not true. Your sole reason for being is to try to control the property you do not own and force your will and the will of the author of the guidelines for historic properties on the actual property owners. The vast majority of the property listed in the proposed downtown Billerica Historic Preservation District has very few properties that are historic, although many are oldish, as in the Barry's Pharmacy building, which is the only building that has any historic architectural features in this proposed district. I submit this to the Billerica Historic Preservation Commission to be entered into the official minutes of this meeting. I respectfully submit it. My name is William Rex Camp. I live at 719 Old Town Yard Road, Billerica, Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Camp. I'm finding it very, very interesting, and I will say that for all of us, I guess I'm the longest person on here because I came in 2017 to fill in for somebody who was not there. All the rest of our commissioners are new, and so I think that for all of us to have this history is really important. And I'm really very sorry that we didn't address these things perhaps in the past. I know that the past commissioners many times didn't have meetings, and maybe they didn't have the expertise that some of our newer commissions might have. But anyway, I thank you for doing this.
Well, I do have one other question.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody here really know what is in that COA? What they are requiring of the church to do?
Actually, we had our meeting in June with them, and it went very well. One of our commissioners who is not here also restores homes, and he agreed to help them. And we have been, Ron and the city of Billerica has been in touch with them and working with them. And we've been looking for grants and giving them some ideas, because some of the grants will not pertain to people, to a church or to a building that has that church background. However, many of us have been taking a look at what can be done, and Angela also offered something, I think last time at that meeting.
Yes,
for them.
correct. I mentioned that the West Georgia Foundation, I remember seeing a grant for churches in particular to apply for. I didn't know the deadline for the application, but I do remembering that was an opportunity for a church to submit a grant for various things.
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, I've heard things like this before in your minutes. I am not so confident.
Well, may I ask a quick question, sir?
Yeah.
Just speaking from my recommendation, it was for the church to do the research to be able to apply for the grant. I wasn't saying that the commission can apply for a grant for you, but I was clearly just trying to assist and provide information.
I do understand that.
Yes.
Like I said, I do understand that. But it was a project of this commission in 2015.
Oh.
Now, priority, as it was stated in the minutes. Now, I know none of you were here, but here again, and like I told Ms. Mills earlier, I have nothing against any individual one of you, but I have a great deal against the commission itself. And I don't know what to say more.
Thank you very much. Okay. Are there any other public comment?
If I could just address a couple of the comments, and I'd also like to start by saying thank you to Mr. Camp for bringing these issues up. And I have absolutely no, I guess, quarrel with the minutes because they are legal record minutes. However, the basis of this being a project of the Historic Preservation Commission, which this property that we're talking about is privately owned, and the HPC has no legal right to even call it its own project. So that in itself is kind of like a red flag. Because we can't incur property, as the HPC as a board or as a body cannot incur property at all. It can seek out funds to attempt to help a property owner or multiple property owners, groups or districts in formation or in trying to do some renovations and things of that nature, but we can't get actually involved because otherwise we would be contracting the city in someone's private property renovation. Which we can't do, obviously. Our bylaws don't allow for that, but it does allow for the HPC to incur funds, not property, but funds, in order to grant agencies or grant property owners of some form with help with these types of renovations, but it is not a requirement to do so. The HPC's primary goal and objective is to issue certificates of appropriateness so the owners can do that. No HPC anywhere owns property. It's just not a function of a Historic Preservation Commission as granted by the state. So I think that that may be able to clarify some confusion with that, but still, notwithstanding though, they did call it their project in 2015, and I don't know, being that I wasn't here in 2015, none of us were here in 2015. There's no way for us to really know if it's the level of involvement that the HPC did have with the owner of the property at the time. But just going through and what I was able to at least see, I believe it's on the first page of the handout here. It might be the second page actually, but here we are, second page, I'm sorry, Tuesday, October 13th, 2015 on the bottom. The highlighted section, Commissioner Proctor expressed concerns with the church owning the property after the renovations are complete. So that kind of gives me a thought that if that's really the case and where they have concerns with them owning it, that doesn't really, I would see that, I would understand if it was something that was a concern prior to renovations, because then they may not qualify for some of the grants that we did talk about at the last meeting, at the special called meeting, but not afterwards. So I'm not sure what they may have been getting at there. It says here on the next line is there is interest in the home, and he has been contacted by parties interested in acquisition of the property for redevelopment. So it looked like it was at some point looked to be changing hands. I don't know if that would be before or after the renovations. The minutes are not detailed enough to know. But in either case, I think it's kind of important to for the HPC to understand that we have no role in private property at all. Like if it was a public building, for example, that the HPC will have an expanded role. Like if it was in this building, for example, and let's say the city wants to demo the, well, maybe this isn't a great example actually, given by the designation report, but if it was any other building that is publicly owned that's in a historic district or a designated historic site, the HPC would have an expanded role in that, and ensuring that either the city comes to the HPC and makes application, which is not required by our ordinance. The city is exempt from its own ordinance. So it doesn't have to follow its own zoning ordinance. It doesn't have to follow its own HPC ordinance, and that's statewide. That's everywhere. But we, in doing it right, the city would have to come here to make application for a certificate of appropriateness for any changes that would happen. So it's a lot different for public versus private.
Thank you, Ron. And yes, none of us here were on the commission at that particular point, but we have heard stories and listening to historians and listening to people in the historic society. We have heard a variety of things, so it's a matter of sorting out where does all of it fit in, and they do overlap. There is some juxtaposition, but primarily it overlaps. What most of us, I believe, on this commission have been under the impression is that HPC, as it stands now, as Ron said, we are not responsible for the building as such, but that when an application is made to the city, then it goes to Ron for zoning and planning, and he and his staff decide whether or not it is appropriate either as it stands or with conditions. And then it is presented to us, and because of the training that we have had most recently, we have been taught to take a look at style, design, materials, cost, and those types of things. And that we become basically only a check and balance to make sure that the conditions that the city put up are actually those that are in the ordinances for that. And then we either say yes or no to whatever it is that the city and the state have said are the ordinances. So in that regard, we really don't. We also do not have any say over finances at all for anybody. That is not our job. And so primarily we're taking a look at the footprint of a building and, hoping to be able to have it look as it did before, if it's going to be restored and it is a historical building. Other than that, that has been our charge, as I understand it, and as I think the rest of the commissioners understand it.
If I could just tag on to that, I don't want to belabor this point. On the first page of the handout, Tuesday, January 13th, 2015 meeting, if we were to go down, I think it's like maybe the 6th line from the bottom, it starts with Commissioner Schwarzkopf spoke about an intern that is willing to assist with the grant applications for the historic preservation, and he will email her resume to commissioners for their review. I'm not sure if this is tied to the Connolly Marchman House above it or not, but if it is, I can only imagine that would be, being that an intern is volunteering to help of some form, that it would have been for technical assistance and getting grant applications. Maybe the church just didn't have someone that could focus on that or had that type of expertise and putting those types of applications together. And that's just an assumption that this is tied together and it wasn't something else that happened in the meeting, because you just can't really tell from these minutes.
It is also my understanding after our last meeting that the members of the church said that they would be willing to sell the house, but that the bank was the one that had to approve it because it would be a short sale.
Right. And again, I'm sorry, I just from reading further down, it still talks about Happy Valley, so that assumption probably looks correct that I made, that this was indeed, the interns volunteering is for Happy Valley Church and for an application for grants. So the commission didn't have to do that, the city didn't have to do that, but it's something that it looked like it was a good faith type of transaction, I guess, give them a COA or help them with grant application or some form. And you don't really see that anywhere. I'm sorry. I mean, this is my third HPC that I've had to administer, and I've never seen something like that before, where a city goes out on a whim to apply for grants for a private property owner. But it's not uncommon. I mean, it's something that can happen. It's just really rare. So I think given the importance of this property to the city and to the HBC at the time in 2015 and same now, that it looked like there was some type of assistance that was willing to be given.
I have one question, if you don't mind. As all
Madam
falls
Chair,
in the
point of
property,
parliamentary
you know what it looks
procedure.
like today? You know what the property looks like today? Have you, all of you been to the property, walked around it, and looked at it?
Yes.
Yes.
Any of you?
Yes.
I've actually been
Point-
inside
point
it.
of Parliamentary procedure.
I've been inside it.
Oh, you've been inside it?
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
bad is it?
The inside is wonderful.
Oh,
It
it's good.
still has beautiful wood
I'm
floorings.
quite surprised.
The back part of the house is falling in due to weight being on it and water seeping underneath the house. But it's beautiful inside.
Well, I spent 20 years in Sunday school in that building.
Miss Amy back there is a marchman.
All right. I appreciate your time.
No, wait, I wanted to talk to you before you left. I want to talk to you after the meeting. Yeah, it'll be a while. Yeah. It'll be a while.
I'm 74 years old, I'm ready to go to bed.
Here, give me your number. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, we'll close that portion of public comment and reports of officers, board meetings, or any standing committees.
Oh, it has his number on there?
Are there any reports from anyone? Standing committees?
I just have one quick update. The Happy Valley Church has their contractor, Phil, he has submitted to me a more detailed list of links. I mean, it's not very detailed, but given the what we agreed to at the last meeting, it looks like they are following that so far. It's only been 2 weeks though, but it looks like they're following it so far. They got back to us promptly. They also reached out to me as well. The applicant's representative that was here that night, I'm sorry to call him this, but the attorney, he was able to get in touch with me, and we kind of talked about some of the grant applications, and they were reviewing the list of grants that came from the state that I talked about at the last meeting. So it looks like they're trying to move forward to see how much money they have to fix some of the other, or how much they can at least get to fix some of the issues that are beyond the certificate of appropriateness. So there might be a more comprehensive application coming in the future, probably the distant future, if they do continue with ownership.
Okay. And yes, and Mr. Camp, as an aside, I was also in the house when it was, before they no longer used it as a school because my neighbor's 2 children went there. And so I was able to go in there, and yet 4 of us on the commission at this point have actually physically walked around the building as it sits today.
Depressing, isn't it?
Yes, yes, it is. Okay. Is there any old business?
Oh, wait, hold on. What were you saying a while ago before I interrupted you?
All right, hearing none, new business.
I was going to make a point of parliamentary procedure that the public comment is for public comment.
I'm sorry,
Not for question and answer.
if you're, I really would like to not have a talk between all of us on here
No.
without everybody being able to hear.
I cut him off a while ago by accident, so he needed to say what he needed to say.
Okay, all right, okay. Shall we do the ABC order as we're hearing right now?
Yeah, because you guys adopted the agenda in that
Okay.
order.
It is time for us to have election for new chairman and co-chair. And at this point, I'd like to open up nominations, and I would like to, as commissioner, nominate David Rogers to be the new chair.
I motion for David to have that position, yes.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none. All in favor of David Rogers becoming the chair for the next year in HPC, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay.
And as far as vice chair, I'd like to nominate Dr. Mims as vice chair of HPC.
I second that motion to nominate Dr. Mills for vice chair for the HPC.
Yes. Third.
I have been nominated to serve as vice chair, which, knowing that David is not going to be absent at all, and I don't have to be a spokesperson anymore. Is there, we got a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 4, and 1 abstention. Me. Okay.
Okay.
Modification for HPC ordinances.
Yes, so in your packets, you found a modification to our appeals language in the HPC's overarching governing ordinance that was enacted back in 2008 by the City Council. Typically, these ordinance changes would not come to the HPC. Typically, they would go straight to the Planning Commission and to the City Council because it is an ordinance change. However, the importance of this issue, and because I wanted 3 public comment periods for this, the city attorney and I and the city manager decided that it is important that we do have this at the HPC, so that's why it's in front of you tonight. So the appeals language, let me back up. This actually came out of the May City Council meeting, where we are still looking to get a affirmative for a designation of the downtown historic district. And one of the questions from one of our council members was about the legal level of review that is required of the city council to overturn certain decisions that are made by the city council, or by the HPC rather. The state of Georgia has a very specific set of rules and procedures for how to appeal a decision, how a governing body can appeal a decision, or I'm sorry, I should say the applicant can appeal a decision to the city council, and also beyond that to the Superior Court in the county that they reside. And the Historic Preservation Commission's ordinance here in Villa Rica basically mirrors that today. There's really no change. Only changes that they input in certain sections. This city of Villa Rica or Villa Rica City Council or what have you. There's no change in the actual reading of the document or what it actually means. So there's an underlined section of the proposed ordinance that's it's actually not underlined on the screen, but it's let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 6th line from the bottom, and I'm counting that one that says violations there. So 6th line from the bottom on the appeal section, it starts with in order to evaluate an appeal. Yeah, there you go. So that sentence starting there, in order to evaluate an appeal based on an asserted abuse of discretion, the council may but shall not be required to conduct a de novo review of the determination. That is the new that's the only change that is proposed. If you recall from the city council meeting, if you were able to watch it, that became a stickler point, the level of review, legal review, that the city council would have to conduct, or when they would get involved with an application that's being appealed by the city, by an applicant. So the city council decided to table the designation ordinance until the HPC ordinance is reviewed by the city attorney, and it can be, in short, basically changed to where the city council can appeal it. They can answer to any appeals from this historic preservation ordinance or from any decision from the HPC. So,
And for those who are listening and watching, we might want to address the idea that attorneys happen to oftentimes use terminology that we don't always know. And so de novo, which actually means refresh or starting over again. So that's basically what they're saying, is that they shall not be required to conduct every new review, but they could have us start over again from the very beginning.
So in context, what Nancy is saying is that with a de novo legal decision, it does not mean, it basically means that despite what the HPC has agreed to, or what they've approved or denied or what have you, the city council does not have to basically take that into consideration. They can start a completely new hearing altogether. And so I think that addresses the city council's concerns with the designation ordinance. However, the concerns that the city council had were, the language has been the same since the HPC was created. It was created in 2008, and this language has been the exact same. So the change that they're proposing is that they can still appeal or listen to appeals to the city council in line with the state. However, they have to still be tied to a discretion-related issue. And that's evident in the wording that says, in order to evaluate an appeal based on an asserted abuse of discretion. So it's still, basically nothing has really changed here. It's still would have to fall under an abuse of discretion, and can't just be because an applicant doesn't like the fact that the HPC has denied their certificate of appropriateness request. It has to be because of something that is not right that the HPC has done. Like, for example, if a member voted that had an interest in a property when they should not have, or a situation where not all of the facts of the case were considered as a part of deliberation of some form. There's a million different reasons why something like that can happen. But it has to be proven that there was a discretion-related concern. That has to be proven some way.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions?
Ron, what's your thoughts on this language? I know we've had some conversations, I think you and I have, and amongst other commissioners here, with the checks and balances process. How do you feel that this new language to the ordinance, does it adversely or positively affect the checks and balances that we have as far as the centralization of authority, I guess, is what I'm asking. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that if, and I'm, I guess strictly talking about the underlying section that they're putting in, I believe that the checks and balances would probably actually stay the same, only because of the discretion language that's still in there, that they still need to meet the discretion or prove that there's been some sort of I guess, informality or some sort of a problem that has caused an appeal. Otherwise, what would end up happening is the HPC's decisions would just be recommendations, and the power to approve a certificate of appropriateness ultimately would really lie with the city council. Which, of course, there then would be, what's the point of the HPC other than just giving a recommendation? So this does not strip that power from the HPC, from what I can see. So it seems like the checks and balances are still in place, and it's in line with the state and their ability to appeal. Because you got to keep in mind also, the state did not give powers to the city council or any legislative body to get involved in a decision with HPCs, because it's in the state's overarching historic preservation ordinance or Historic Preservation Act, I believe it is, of 1980. Being that the city council doesn't have that authority to grant certificates of appropriateness, even though they elected or they appointed a board to do just that, that's just how the state act is written, and that's what every city and municipality and county has to abide by. So I think it's still in place to answer your question, the checks and balances.
Yeah, thank you.
Doug, you have a question?
Yes, ma'am. Ron, do we know if any city or local local municipality or county?
Doug, could you close to the microphone, make sure it sounds please?
Oh, sure, sorry. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Ron, do we know if any local municipality, city or county has the authority to rewrite or amend state, in this case OCGA code, state law?
No municipality can do that.
Okay.
That's an act of the Georgia legislature.
So does this in fact but isn't this in fact amending or changing OCGA and therefore a local municipality overriding or changing state law?
No, and the reason I say that is because we're only talking about changing our ordinance, and even though our ordinance mirrors the state's ordinance almost in totality, as far as the appeals section, I want to make sure that that's clear. As far as the appeals section is concerned, because of the choice of words that is put into this, and this sentence specifically that we're talking about tonight, there's no material change in what they're basically what they're putting in here. So your next question may be, well, then why are we changing it then if there's no material change? And I think a lot of the reason for that is to address the concern of and to make it clearer that we're talking about de novo review at the city council level. The state ordinance, the state act does say in the appeal section that it does specifically state de novo review, but ours doesn't. That's the only difference here, and that has been the case since 2008. So they're correcting that and they're putting it in there, even though it would have been a de novo review anyway, because that's what the state allows in the act. But they're putting that in the local ordinance now.
Okay, so I personally did not, maybe I missed it, but I did not see de novo review in the OCGA, I forget, Title 10, Section.
Yeah, there's.
But I did not see that phrase in there. You're saying that is?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
There's de novo review is a requirement. And that's the level and standard of review that a city council has to have, or their attorney or whomever has to have for any type of an appeal from an HPC.
Okay. And then, and sorry, I know you're not an attorney, but you're very well versed in a lot of this, so forgive me if I'm asking you things that maybe you may or may not be familiar with. But then, as Madam Chair pointed out, the definition of the novo review is, a do-over or redo, a start anew.
Mm-hmm.
In that case, if in starting anew, would that, because it's not stated, would that imply that all parties would be heard from? Meaning, what I'm getting at is this, I'll put it as simple as I can. I personally would not like to see an appeal take place, the council hear from the appeal applicant and not hear from the HPC of what they were thinking, why they made their decision, what the decision was based on, because the cover letter for the background says that the proposed amendment allows the council in its discretion to conduct a novo review of the facts and circumstances leading to the decision of the Historic Preservation Commission. Upon hearing those facts and circumstances, the council will be. So while it doesn't stipulate it, and in law nothing's implied, it doesn't stipulate that it'll hear from all parties. We're starting over, it is a hearing, and that representatives of the applicant or applicants or entity or entities of the appeal, and representative or representatives of the HPC will be appointed to all be available to attend the hearing and make presentations on behalf of what.
Actually,
When-
Doug, the de novo review is based exactly on that one sentence that was in there that says, in order to evaluate based on an asserted abuse of discretion. And so we're only looking at that type of thing. We're not talking about the rest of it. It's only that one sentence that it's based on and not anything else.
I understand what it's based on, but it's just that if they're gonna, if it's hearing something anew, then I'm just wondering, would the council hear from all parties involved, including the HPC?
Well, Doug, I don't have an exact answer for your question. However, I would, seeing this played out before, actually, the way that it typically works is your minutes that you would certify, and also the denial letter to the certificate of appropriateness would be entered into the record, and at that point, the city or the HPC would have to make clear in their motion why they're denying it. That's why the clarity of a motion is extremely important, not just for this board, but for any standing body or committee in the city or any city. But what you put in writing, and not you directly, but what the HPC puts in writing and certifies to the city council is your record. So you want to include everything in it. Your minutes would have to be, for any case, would have to obviously be detailed enough to get your point across to why you're denying it. So as a part of deliberations, and we see this a lot of cities, when they vote for anything, it can be anything under the sun, giving your reasoning why you're voting that way it can be a double-edged sword. Because you have to now, live by that, because that is your reasons why, and it can't be a biased reason why you're doing it, or any other what would be considered an abuse of discretion or abuse of power, which is what they're trying to address in this. So, would the city council call the individual members up in front of the podium? It's possible that they can do that. But there's not a single one of you that actually speaks for the commission directly. You speak together as a body.
Okay, I appreciate that detail, because I think it emphasizes that when a decision, and this should be happening anyway, but I think this emphasizes when a decision is made for, against, or with conditions, that the HPC put out very detailed, in writing, very detailed reason for the decision, part of the minutes, or actually writing a decision that becomes part of maybe of the minutes, because that might be the only information the council has from the HPC to go by. We or somebody may or may not get to appear, but knowing that may be the only chance for council and mayor to look this, the council to look it over. Thank you for making that point, because we need to make sure that everything we produce is extremely detailed, which we should be doing anyway.
Particularly this commission, more so than any other, because you're directly involved with aesthetic of a community. So if you approve something and you're almost quasi-administrative in a way, because you're giving approval for something directly to where the person can probably start the next day if they have their permits in order. So it's really important to be very detailed about what you are required, what you are allowing, and what you're not allowing as a part of the certificate of appropriateness. So.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I always say, I'm not sure if you'll know the answer to it, but you always do.
I try.
So I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion or questions?
My thoughts are that, based on the meeting that we had last month and some of the public comment, and, after really thinking long and hard for the last month and a little longer over the merits of the concern. I think they were all well-founded merits, the more I understand the standard of review. And, I think it concerned a lot of the commission as well as public that are paying attention as to what's going to happen, what's council going to come back with, what's the city attorney going to come back with. And, reading what he has and digesting it and listening to your interpretation and everything else, I think it is a very clean, amendment to the ordinance, and it basically just would address some egregious behavior or decision out of the commission, and I think that's a very good compromise. Basically, it would stop. It would give council the opportunity to review a decision out of HPC before it landed in Supreme Court, if it was for some, under the outline.
Well, it would still go to council anyway, only if it's obviously abuse of discretion. It would still, council is still the next step after the HPC, but at least they can have a new hearing for the person if they do appeal. Let's say that it is a really well-founded concern that really is on the HPC, right? And someone wants to bring that to the council, it at least gives the council something in writing that is actually a part of our city code that allows them to do that and to start a whole new review, or they don't have to start a whole new review. It's entirely up to the city council what they want to do. They can say, we're going to continue on from the HPC hearing, and the assertion of abuse of power will take that up as a part of that hearing. So they can reverse a certificate of appropriateness decision based on those grounds, based on just the discretion issue
That's true.
only.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
And before I ask for a motion to adjourn, I want to thank,
We had to vote on this.
Yeah, we're going to.
oh, I'm sorry. We do have-
That's
I
fine.
was, we have a motion to adopt and to suggest that we adopt this amendment.
I'll just want to add really quick. The cover sheet that you have
Yeah.
for this, I usually don't include cover sheets in HPC packages because, quite frankly, you guys don't really get very much that cover sheets I would have to deal with you guys. But there is a motion on the second page on the bottom, the last two lines, if that's the motion that you're
Thank
interested
you.
in. But that is the motion that's being presented to the city council.
Right, thank you. All right,
Do we need to have public comment before we,
I'm sorry.
do we need to have any public comment to this?
not really.
Hold on. This is legal.
My
an
background in
ordinance
law
change.
says no, that we actually don't
I would
because.
do it anyway.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
all right,
I would do
okay.
it anyway. This is an ordinance change, so typically after an ordinance change, you would, but at the planning commission level, for example.
Okay,
So we should probably
Yeah.
do it. It's not gonna bring-
and the fact that, yeah, our city attorney is the one who actually put it in there, so, do we have a motion? Or do we have any other discussion about that? Open to anyone?
So I make a motion, I suppose, based on Mr. Johnson's advice or recommendation, I make a motion that we postpone allow time for public comment before we move to approve this or deny it? Is that a proper,
You actually don't have to make a motion.
You don't do motion for
To
that, no.
postpone before, you can just call for public comment.
Yeah.
okay, then I make a motion
Is it-
for public comment.
No,
Oh, you don't have to make a motion.
you don't have to make a motion for that.
The chair can,
Yeah.
just say.
If there's public comment and anyone wants to speak for public comment, then they are able to come up. There's no motion to do that at all.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Hearing none, the portion of public comment is now closed. Do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that the HPC recommend to City Council approval of the proposed amendment to Section 10.015N of the City of Villa Rica zoning ordinance, HPC ordinance as proposed.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion second. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Okay, now then, finally, I want to thank all of you for coming this evening. I wish that more people would come to our meetings, and I wish David all the luck in the world, and to address Mr. Camp. You're still a youngster. I'm 80. But I'm looking forward to doing my time with the Lions Club and with other organizations that I belong to, and actually sitting back and enjoying our home. And my husband and I were married 59 years in May, and so I thank all of you, and good luck to all of you. And so do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second. We are adjourned.
Right.